pat yourself on the back, boys, because it is a wonderful day to be a marathon hater. And that's right, I said it. I am not afraid to be who I am, who I always was. And that is obviously a marathon and Bungie hater. Very brave, some would say maybe even the bravest thing ever said in human history. I will take all your praise in the comment section down below. Thank you very much. And I know, my haircut obviously agrees. But in any case, boys, it is truly a never-ending feast for the Marathon and Bungie haters because Marathon does not disappoint in disappointment. Strange sentence, but it actually works, doesn't it? In any case, boys, the Friday's numbers are here, and it is 13.1k, and this is a big deal, because with this, I can safely say, with pretty much like 100% certainty, it's finally time. Marathon on Monday is gonna slip below 10k with its peak. I mean, well, it's not a 99%, but it's like almost an 80 to 90% probability at this point, which is very, very high. Honestly, by judging by everything, it should have already slipped below 10k this week, but something strange happened. And a lot of strange things have been happening, and as we're going to talk about it later, some people are catching on and thinking that, wow, this is very interesting what's going on. We're going to get into that a little bit more later, but in any case, Bungie is pretty desperate, as you can imagine. So desperate tactics are going to be measured. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about today, other than this graph, is the fact that Marathon is getting rid of PvP. That's right, your hardcore extraction unit is gonna get rid of PvP. Effectively. Not really, but that's kind of what they're low-key gonna achieve by doing this, but because there's pretty much no other outcome for this, honestly. In any case, let's look at the graph and figure out why it is very, very likely that Marathon is going under 10k finally on Monday as a relatively normal take. I mean, we have been hovering around 11k for a while now, last week and whatnot. And the reason why we can do this is because we see this is Friday. I know it says Saturday, but bear with me, boys. These graphs are sometimes annoying when the peak is at 2 to 3 a.m. for our Meta friends so they can follow. And it was 13k. This Friday's peak was 13k. Do you know which was previous Friday's peak? 15k. And after that 15k on Friday, now granted, Saturday is the biggest day again for Marathon, which is strange. It kind of swapped places, but whatever. Maybe today is going to be 13.4k. We're not expecting exactly a rise. If you look at, for example, the 10 p.m. statistics here, it is a little bit better, but this is like 10%. This is roughly, well, actually, it's more than 10%, 15%, but this is normal because this is the day that everyone really goes on and the spike grows faster. But that doesn't mean it's going to be 15% more than this. Marathon is not exceeding, boys, 14k players today. Don't worry about that. Well, don't worry about Marathon succeeding in general because it doesn't matter what happens. It is a failure and nothing can change it. Again, the game that was supposed to replace Destiny, and I mean, this is what we're getting. Not good, not good. But in any case, I'm assuming that the day is going to peak at something around 13.4k-ish, maybe 13.7k if the Marathon players are really pushing it, which they're not because the game's garbage. But, you know, it can happen. Well, we have these numbers to compare to the previous peaks, which was 15 and 15.3k, 15.4k. So let's put it at 15.2k, just for simplicity's sake. And after that, on Monday, Marathon got absolutely fucking destroyed. Actually, it already happened on Saturday, which is, oh no. No, it was Saturday. No, it happened on Sunday. What the fuck? Oh yeah, it did. It happened already on Sunday somehow, which is a miracle. On Sunday, Marathon already slipped at 11.6k. That is a 3.5k drop. That is massive. That is absolutely massive. That's 20+%, by the way. That is massive. And a 20+% drop from this, from 13k, is not, by the way, below 10k. That would be 10.5 or something like that. 10.8, I think. But these things happen in chunks. When the drop happens, the drop is just a slab. It's a giant number. So I'm expecting a 4k drop, a 3k drop, something like that. Something like we saw here, you know, from 15k to 11.5. So Monday could be maybe 9.5k, 9.7k. Something like that. Maybe 9k because the drop just increases exponentially. No one knows really. It's hard to gauge that. But in any case, the data on all fronts is showing roughly a 9.5k peak player count on Monday. Now, granted, I did think that this is going to happen this week, but Marathon has had this history of extremely strange resilience. At the start of the game, the numbers did not go down drastically. In fact, this retention rate for the game actually was pretty good. I talked about this. Say what you will about Marathon, its retention rate in the first month was surprisingly good. And then it started dropping like 20%, 30% concurrence all the time. And then it had like these strange points, I don't know, randomly. For example, here of, oh, Marathon's just losing now 1% a day? Which happened multiple times. And needless to say, all of that is extremely sus. And a lot of people have slowly caught on to this, others than me. Because this is a little bit too good. These numbers are not dropping. Granted, they're not increasing, but they are not dropping like we saw here last week or the week prior. And again, it's kind of like this strange stabilization. And Bungie hasn't really done anything for it to happen. There's no update. There's no nothing. The player score on Steam is still going down. It has gone down by 0.2, I think, from the last time we talked about it, which was a month ago. Which means that, by the way, how fast this player score changes for clearly astroturfed games is actually a very good indicator of sales rates. Yes. This is at least how I don't think I have mentioned this, by the way, before, that this is why I pay close attention to this number, because I use it to actually gauge sales rates. I don't think I have ever mentioned that. But there, now you know. I use this number to actually figure out sales rates. I know, it's pretty funny, but it works. It works really well. Because this number should it depends on how fast this number is changing, and this thing is changing in a glacial speed from, I don't know, like since the beginning of Marathon, which means if it's not changing because if it's a really good game, then logic would say that the player numbers should go up. If it's a really good game because everyone likes it and it's not changing, that means that that new players like it, and more people would naturally come to play Marathon, because no one we can't just say Marathon bad and no one buys it. No one listens to people on YouTube, streamers, or whatever. If the game is good, it's gonna sell no matter what. But Marathon's score is just slowly going down, and it's extreme slow, which means no one's buying the game. No one is buying the fucking game. So Marathon is probably still not at 1.5 million sales. That would be my estimate. Maybe it's at 2 million sales. It's hard to say. If these things are real, which I'm not sure, because I'm not actually paying attention to the discounts, if they even fucking exist. I don't think they exist, honestly. I'm not looking at the discounts, and people are slowly talking about this. Bungie is facing a civil war. Bungie is facing a civil war right now. Destiny players are fed up, yes, because Destiny 2 has been abandoned in favor of Marathon. The community allegedly had to idle. This is the crazy part, right? This is the thing. The community allegedly had to idle log bot just to make Marathon look like it had decent player counts, while Bungie kept throwing everything they have at their struggling a new game. Meanwhile, the game that actually made them successful gets almost no meaningful updates. The bot part is crazy because it would explain the situation at Marathon. Now, I don't know if I believe it, honestly, because if Bungie botted their own game, the botting would be consistent, and we wouldn't have such situations where the player base moves by less than 1% in a week, which is wild. We would not have we would have consistency with that, but currently we don't have consistency with that. So maybe it is players actually, doing Bungie's work for them, because I mean, Bungie fanboys are gonna go very long distances to, try to pretend that their fucking games are not garbage. So that is potentially possible if it's getting botted by players and activists. But I don't know how much I believe that. It doesn't seem unbelievable per se, but it doesn't exactly feel the most believable, IGN is also reporting Marathon is attempting to broaden its player base with new offerings such as PvE only mode. Needless to say, this is a disaster, because the way that Bungie tried to the way that Bungie players coped with with Marathon being fucking hot garbage was by saying, "Oh, Arc Raiders is the kiddie game. Marathon is the hardcore extraction experience. You're gonna die 20 times before you even log in." They did that garbage. And as player count dwindled, this became a form of toxic positivity. And everyone kept shouting that, "Oh, Marathon's a hardcore extraction shooter," and obviously that's bullshit. Marathon's just a bad game. It's not a hardcore fucking anything. So Bungie understands that this, by the way, this proves that I was right when I said that the dwindling player base is gonna cannibalize the PvE players, because Bungie knows all of the numbers. They have access to who plays PvE, who doesn't engage in PvP, and all of that thing in pretty good detail, obviously. And the reason that they're doing this is because the PvE players, exactly as I predicted, are going to be the first ones to leave, because when matchmaking doesn't work, well, it is going to pair PvEers with PvPers. PvPers are going to have a great time because they get to farm the people who don't even shoot back and they feel good about themselves. And PvEers are just going to abandon the game because it's fucking dog shit for them, because they can't do the PvE. Which is, by the way, extremely bad in Marathon. Have you seen the final boss that they currently have in the Cryo Archive? The Fabricator or whatever the fuck it's called? Jesus motherfucking Christ, is that thing stupid. But in any case, this means that we were 100% right on the money as always, boys, because because Bungie is seeing the PvE players are just leaving in droves. This is probably the big slams of players that leave because they just get farmed by the PvEers. And after that, it's going to be the low-skill PvPers that get farmed by the good players, and then the game effectively collapses. That's what's going to happen. And needless to say, this news sparked a counter-reaction. If you listen to your players, it will turn out bad. That's by Cabru's, by the way. Opinion: Marathon risks watering down its best feature if it keeps listening to FPS fans. And this is about the PvP. It's about the game being super hardcore, whatever the hell that honestly means at this point, right? And yeah, this is a counter reaction to literally goddamn this, which is hilarious. Again, the current player base is toxic positivity about Marathon being some kind of hardcore extraction god game or whatever. So they don't want this PvE PvP split. They don't want the game being accessible to new players. So there's a lot of toxic positivity that kills the game to actually, first of all, remove so the game can actually function. And I don't think Bungie is going to be able to do this. A Bungie, by trying to pretend that they're not failures and the marathon was a success, literally created the situation they are in currently, which is an absolute disaster because there's no way out. Also, this is going to be the thumbnail, deal with it. And then we have this. This is just a beautiful crash out, okay? I know people don't hear this, but the PvE only, PvP light, and pure PvP focused mods are what Marathon needs to stay alive. Extraction is really cool concept, but it's also too niche of a genre to match Bungie's budget of graphics, world, story. Bruh, Extraction is not a niche genre. Arc Raiders was one of the most popular games in the world for a literal few months. It's not a niche genre. You just need to make a good game, okay? Stop with the cope. And this person replies, 100%. I don't think people people realize how short the timing on making Marathon profitable is. It's not profitable by November 19th. Very specific date, by the way. 2026, it's probably dead, and that's assuming summer 2026 doesn't gut the studio. Why do I say this? Because GTA. The studio's probably gonna get gutted. I'm not gonna go into how correct this assumption is because we care about the reply, because the reply is fucking bonkers. Yeah, you work for Sony and know exactly how it all works inside. You're an accountant for them. Shut up, stop making flat out stupid remarks. What makes this a stupid remark? Don't exactly know. Do I agree with it? Not really. But it's not. But this is not like the worst take. It's not even a bad take per se. And this person, just because their favorite fucking Marathon got fucking cheek clapped, is now doing this. And then there's a reply. You'd have to be in abject denial of reality not to see the writing on the wall. True. Absolutely 100% true. And you see, these are the people trying to defend Marathon. These are the people currently in a positive state of mind about the state of Marathon, and the people who are effectively governing how the community acts, which is fucking wild and unhinged. You're not an accountant for Sony, never will be. You know nothing about Sony internally. Reading a Steam chart doesn't make your IQ go up. My dude, the information Sony has about Marathon, actually it's Bungie, then Sony gets a summary of that, by the way, if you're wondering. That's how it actually fucking works, because they are tied through that type of a relationship. But, well, my IQ is also not going up, obviously. Anyway, this graph is literally a derivative of what Sony sees on their end, which makes their graphs derivatives of this, by the way. So this is actually the exact same thing that the people at Sony see. Sure, they see player engagement in PvP, PvE, and things like that, but let's be real, how stupid do you need to be to look at this graph and think that this is a success, or that somehow Sony's actually seeing information that makes this actually good? It's not good. You're just a clown. You're just a clown. And then the person replies, I'm not reading Steam charts, I'm looking at what's being reported. Marathon cost 250 plus million. Called it. Just one more thing I was right about. Might have sold around 2 million copies. I'm saying it hasn't even sold 1.5 million. Maybe it's extremely close. But I don't think it has sold 1.5 million copies yet. Sony Bungie expected it to be a top 5 NPD. Don't know what that actually means. For the year of 2025, yes. They thought it's going to be big. Obviously, it wasn't. Because, again, Marathon was made to replace Destiny 2, and it's not even 1/3 of Destiny. It's barely 1/4 of Destiny. Bungie has done so poorly since acquiring. They have devalued by nearly $1 billion through. This is the 900 million, by the way, he's talking about. I told you, it's not actually that Bungie has lost that money. It's just an effect of Bungie being garbage that has lost that money, kind of. In any case, this is what we're dealing with here. These people are absolutely insane. And these are the people defending Bungie. It is pretty sad. In any case, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Have a nice day. Bye.